Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Brian Gillis.
And I'm Stephen Malmanex.
Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching the latest releases. However, it can sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we missed, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
Hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
What do you want?
I mean, what do I want?
What do you want here?
I want a job.
A job.
I promise you an easy $300.
I don't get an easy feeling.
How's your skin, son? I like my aids to be presentable.
Well, I've had a few zits. But my roommate, he let me his clinic because he's from Chestnut Hill and he's got
The
this.
History of My Skin by Charles Sims. Get out my dress blues. They're in a garment bag in the closet.
Are we going someplace, Kurt?
What business is that of yours? Don't shrug, you imbecile. I'm blind. Our destination, New York City.
1992 greatest hits. We got another classic here. Unbeknownst to me, I totally forgot that this was directed by Martin Brest, who on my DVD case, and I'm assuming also your VHS cover, is proclaimed as from the director of
Beverly Hills Cop. Yep.
Yeah. Last week we had the conversation of, wow, Rob Reiner and Steven Spielberg, these like blockbuster guys. Then yet again here, Martin Brest, also until this point a blockbuster guy, making these very personal Hallmark-esque classic style films in the early 90s.
I don't know how to peg him as a director. I mean, he's only got, what, like 5 films under his belt?
Yeah, this one was his high point.
The dude made Jiggly, or Gigli. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I love Beverly Hills Cop, but not sure how much credit I want to give to this guy.
I haven't seen Midnight Run, but I have to assume
I hear
it's good because it's what he followed Beverly Hills Cop with. But I love Sound of a Woman. Obviously, I picked this one. I own it. Meet Joe Black. Underrated movie, even if it's like 3 hours long.
I have not seen it, but it's back and forth where there's people that really like it or they hate it. It's
kind of like this film. It is a total philosophical, meditative experience where primarily what's going on is communication or dialogue between a couple of characters. And then Gigli is also kind of like that. I'm gonna rewatch it at some point in my life. But yeah, that ruined his career. It ruined J-Lo's acting career. It ruined lots of careers. But this one began them. Al Pacino notably wins his first Oscar, which he was trying to get big time since forever. You get Chris O'Donnell basically having his big breakthrough role. He went on to do, among other things, I don't know, Batman Forever and
Vertical Limit,
School
Three
Ties,
Musketeers,
Vertical Limit. Vertical Limit's actually not bad for what it is.
We don't get movies like that anymore, really.
Yeah, it's a total genre action piece. But Chris O'Donnell, if you haven't seen School Ties, also 1992, also set in a prep school, except that one is basically about why anti-Semitism sucks ass.
But also, evidently, most of the cast that he's with in that movie, they auditioned for the same part in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's really not much trivia you can get, though. That's kind of as exciting as it gets.
Yeah, the trivia of this movie is, look at how awesome Philip Seymour Hoffman is in his breakthrough role. Mm-hmm. Look at how great a character Chris O'Donnell plays. And then look how fun and interesting this film is about basically a blind asshole and his heart of gold young aide. As far as I see it, one of the quintessential 1990s coming-of-age films, because this is not a teen movie. This is not like a John Hughes type film. This is not a party or feel-good flick. Mm-hmm. This is very much so what it's like when you know nothing to learn everything from someone who's gone through it, and then more so what it's like when you feel like you don't want to learn anything else and you're being reminded that life is still worth living. On both sides of the spectrum for the 17-year-old and the 70-year-old, even though he's not quite that age here.
He's almost 80
he's
now,
like 60.
I think.
Probably like 57. It's probably 1757 or something like that at this time in the film. But the first time I saw it on cable, I just knew it was going to be one of those movies for me. Maybe that's the score, because it is by, what's his name?
Thomas Newman.
Thomas Newman, and it just sounds like American Beauty in a lot of different ways, and the film is also kind of reminiscent of the type of thematic elements that are composed in that film as well. Just the way the trumpets and the strings play when they're getting out of limos or walking down the street, and it has that feeling to it. Like there's something about his scoring where it's like, yeah, it's probably an Oscar movie, and this one is.
There's something, about his scores just in general, whether it's Shawshank Redemption. Here, actually, it ended up being one of the weak points for me just as it went on.
Yeah.
It
is a little bit manipulative.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I didn't hate, but started going downhill for me. And like, there was just a certain point where I started realizing, wow, this is actually a bit too long, maybe, and also probably a bit too manipulative in ways where I just don't feel like music is necessary. Like, one thing I do really like about this movie at first is how scenes start to play on. Like the first time that he meets Pacino, that goes on for quite a while, but you're fascinated by him. Yeah, you just keep watching him. You just want to see more of who this guy is. And I mean, there's a lot of great moments peppered throughout, but I do think pacing, at least for me, does kind of become a bit of an issue, because it's not like these scenes are bad, but for me, there is a point where I'm just like, well, I don't feel like I'm necessarily going anywhere, or like I'm in a position where it's any different than it was before.
It's a long film.
It's a really long film.
2.5 hours. It's a long journey, despite only like what the story time is, maybe 5 days. Like it.
I think it's Thanksgiving weekend, or do they come back on a Monday or Tuesday? Something like that.
They come. The film ends on a Monday, but it doesn't start on that Friday. If you look at the legal drama that's at play here, they say Tuesday last, and that means that the film started before that. So the film is like Monday to Monday or Sunday to Monday. It's about a week, and it feels like a week. Like I thought the runtime was 2 hours. I forgot it was 2 hours,
2 hours
and
40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's long, but at the same time it's adapted from a novel, but it feels like a book.
It's also the remake of this Italian movie, which I'm wondering if maybe it's one of those things where just it's kind of an art house idea of like, oh, they wander around, and it's it's much more deliberately slow. And here it's got that Hollywood touch on it where there's the score.
Well, here's the Waldorf Astoria, here's a limo, here's an escort, here's a tango scene, here's them getting close. Like, you could take just about any scene or sequence of this film and just cut that and show it to someone, and it's pretty much the whole movie.
That'd be a dangerous way to pitch the movie itself, though, because then that would definitely have like messed with my expectations, or just ruin your viewing experience a bit.
Because this is very much so, in my opinion, one of those films where there are scenes that stand out, and sometimes that makes for a bad movie, but that's just kind of the way it is. In the same way, like sometimes when you're reading a novel, certain chapters or pages really stand out. Like those are the ones that you rip apart and take with you in your back pocket or highlight or whatever. And like personally for me in this one, it's that tango scene, like
which is great,
the big moment of the film. Or better than that, them driving the Ferrari, or like not even just the
that's
Ferrari
the thing
driving.
Too, it's also like he does say at one point near the end 2 reasons why you shouldn't die: because you drive a Ferrari better than anyone I've seen, and you also do the tango better than anyone I've seen. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, what a coincidence. Those are the 2 best moments I've seen in this movie, and I'm 2 hours and 20 minutes.
It's like I told you, this one is fine to watch on VHS because very little about what you're actually seeing matters, and those are the only 2 sequences that matter. They really do. That tango scene, which is on YouTube in its entirety, you want the best like visual fidelity. You just do. For looking around the room, watching everything, you want to hear the sound at it's this pristine like source quality. You want to really be in that moment.
Well, the sound is good for this movie too, by the way. I had my headphones on, and the track
is it half and half?
Yeah, the track on the tape, it worked out fine. It was a stereo track, so for 2 channels going into your ears, it's good. And just to get this stupid thing out of the way, but I don't know, for some reason, I'm not trying to like build up VHS as being something awesome, but there is something that I kind of liked as far as experiencing this as the way that it was released on home video back in the day. It definitely gave a sense of time and place that, it was nice, and it did look good too. Still, it wasn't beaten to shit, so there was that.
Yeah, my DVD's from 1998, and it has some digital artifacts a little bit, and the menu fucking sucks. Like, this is one of those DVDs that came out so early on that if you go to special features, it says production notes and cast and crew. Like, it's one of those where you go, so the only reason I have this on DVD is so I don't have to rewind it. and because it takes up less space.
I guess back to the movie. It's funny because like those moments, it's like you said, there are certain chapters that stick out. There's certain scenes that work in a movie, and I think that's definitely fair. It's just I look at the movie as a whole, and like really, there's these individual moments that I like, but then as a whole, I'm just kind of left with like this is a bit problematic. And then as I'm done watching the movie, I start thinking more and more, and these cynical thoughts come in of okay, this might be Al Pacino's sympathy Oscar that he got, because what other great roles did he have? There was Michael Corleone in The Godfather. There was there's Dog Day Afternoon. Glenn Ross, the supporting role that he got in the same year.
He was nominated, the same year.
Yeah, which that was also great. I mean, which I think is a better movie. But then again, it's like this is a deserving role to get that for, absolutely, because just the physicality of this role, you believe that Pacino is blind. Like the way that he describes, the way that he just like describes like playing it was like he just focused on one thing in front of him, didn't use his periphery, like, and just kept moving. I'm like, that to have that much focus, doing that, props to the man. Like it worked out beautifully.
It's like I know Daredevil's a good episode for us. I have to imagine that Ben Affleck, because he wears glasses in that film, but I have to imagine he studied this role a little bit. Pacino, I think, went to like a school of the blind to truly understand like how to use the cane and how they work. And he's not exactly a method actor, but he did method on this one. That when he was on set, he wouldn't look at people when they talked. He stayed in his blind performance, so he could really live that. And like even how hard it must have been to even perform the tango scene, which they shot for 3 days, rehearsed for like 2 weeks. It's very physical. And you don't see his face in every single shot of that sequence, but at the same time, how hard it must have been to not make eye contact with your dance partner, for them to know that you're not going to make eye contact with them.
Well, and also, like, just how well choreographed that must have been, too. Like, just him memorizing the room probably based on steps, knowing the area well enough, like, doing it the way that a blind man would.
Like, I need some coordinates. What am I looking at here? Like, just the way that you kind of, this film, I don't know, introduces to an audience what it's like to accompany or be around a blind person. That, like, don't grab my arm. And you have Charlie apologize, and he goes, "No, don't apologize. You didn't know. That's why I'm telling you. Like now you won't fuck up again, right?" And there's so many moments like this, and you realize throughout the film that Charlie, he might be stoic in the legal bookends of this film in terms of what's going on at prep school. Like he has integrity, he has heart, he has principles that no one's gonna shake him on, but he's still young. He's still learning these things. This on the outskirts, like, old asshole at the end of his life, pretty much, or at least he assumes is the end of his life, is teaching him a lot. He's imparting so many life lessons here, even if it's just about, the title itself, the role the scent a woman plays in terms of who she is, which every time that happens in this movie is, just one of those highlights where you're like, oh, man.
It's one of those things where it's like it's a nice touch, and at the same time I'm thinking, it's such a misleading title, because it sounds like a fitting title for, at least to me, like, what if this was a story of a blind man that fell in love with a woman, and then there was a romance, and that was kind of what I thought this movie was going to be, to be honest, because I'm like, oh, Brian says he loves this movie. And then, I kind of remember halfway, wait, you chose to follow this up with A Few Good Men? Where's the courtroom thing? And then you get to the end, and it's like, you got to be kidding me. Is this really how...
It's a Mr. Smith Goes to Washington moment.
Yeah, it's a Frank Capra ending that comes out of nowhere.
Given that, that's one of my favorite films. And, like I said, this is also in its own way a legal movie. Because you never lose track of that. I think that's the beauty of the pacing in this film, that's really the thing that matters from the beginning to the end.
There's definitely that sense of anxiety of like, oh shit, like something's like, I'm going to get fucked over, and here I am stuck in New York. The car is
feeling heavy again, like what's wrong? Tell me about it. Who's George Sr., George Jr.? Just the phone calls they're doing to the lodge, like calling his parents' house. That you have these little moments where he's consistently always thinking about, I have to go back to school. Can I get the plane back? I can't be here anymore. Like he's never losing sight of his future. He wants to maybe not go to Harvard, but he's definitely going to college. Like it's not necessarily about Chris O'Donnell's character. it is 100% about Al Pacino. And the reason the title matters is because the thing that makes him realize life is still worth living is the scent of a woman. You know, he has that line. There's so many good lines in this movie. When he has his fat cat and he's about to leave to go to New York, and my cat currently is fucking biting things and making a mess, and who knows, if you hear weird sounds, that's him. He picks up his cat. You know, actually, the first line of dialogue from Al Pacino's character, and he's off screen, you haven't met him yet, when his niece asks him, you know, do you want the cat in? And he goes, no, he's trying to chase that calico from the track houses.
And then she just goes like, he's really a sweetheart when you get to know him.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah. Just take him on walks. Don't let him drink too much. Try to limit him to 4 drinks a day type shit. But then as soon as they leave, he has the cat in his arms like, ooh, I love you, and I love you. And he goes, like, his fucking line is, just remember, have sex or something like, or don't forget to fuck, or like, it's something like that, just out of left field, and you're like, okay, this guy might be crazy and blind, and he might juggle grenades or whatever, and he might not shut the fuck up about Lyndon B. Johnson and his time with him. But when you have that sequence, I think it's on the plane. It's when they're in first class, and it's like the first time you really hear him talk, and you go, okay, every time Al Pacino has a monologue, you got to listen to it because it's important. He's telling you life lessons, and he goes, you know, my favorite thing in life, you know, he starts talking about women. He starts talking about their legs and their breasts and their nipples and their lips and like the pussy being, a passport to heaven, I think it is. And, you know, he's talking about all these things. And he's like, a distant second, a very distant second is a Ferrari, right? The Ferrari didn't do it for him. The escort that he had the night before driving the Ferrari didn't do it for him. What did it for him was the tango. What did it for him was, you know, talking to the professor after the disciplinary hearing. You know, these reminders of, I'm an old man, I'm blind,
and there's
asshole.
someone that still wants to spend time with him, too, because he's at that age where it's more than just that. You know, he's looking for a place to hang his hat.
It's not companionship. He needs someone that is going to be with him. You know, they have that moment in the hotel when it's almost a double homicide or a homicide-suicide, whatever you want to call it. You know, the most intense moment of the film. And how fucking horrible would it be if the film just ended right there? You just hear a gunshot and it cuts to black. Al Pacino was approached first, okay? But when he declined, and then later his agent said, don't be a dumbass, please take this movie. He probably said, you're going to win an Oscar, trust me. They approached Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And you can totally picture Jack in this role. Like,
I could also picture Pacino in the other role too for A Few Men, but
definitely.
You know, I think it works out perfectly because I don't. You know what? Probably the Tom Cruise Jack Nicholson impression, that might be a reason alone to keep it that way for me.
I mean, I can also picture Tom Cruise going, hoo-wah!
Yeah. Well, this is the first movie that he did that too. It's funny because I mean, you know, after Al Pacino wins an Oscar for this, he just starts kind of going nuts and doing everything the same way. Where
Simone,
where he just kind of, you know, even Heat, you know, that moment where his eyes just like bulge out, and he's like, "She's got a big ass, and you got your head all the way up it."
Like, I think what happened is Al Pacino, you know, his whole career thought he was a really great actor, and no one respected that fact. They're like,
and then he wins an Oscar,
The Godfather because of Marlon Brando.
Yeah,
they only like The Godfather Part 2 because of Robert De Niro. It's not me. It's not fucking me. It's always someone else. And
the one movie that's about me they hated, which is Part 3.
So he wins the fucking Oscar, and then he goes full on, I'm Al Pacino, deal with it. I'm gonna be in Jack and Jill. I'm gonna be in Heat. I'm gonna be in this. If you don't like me, fuck you. I've already made it. 88 minutes, okay? Like, everything he does now is probably him going, I don't need another Oscar. I got my Oscar. I'm vindicated. I'm validated. Like, I am the man. And I will ad-lib random shit. Like, when was the last time? Was it something Collins? I think it was his last theatrical film.
Yeah, which I didn't see, but I remember a trailer
I heard it was good
for it. Yeah,
I heard it was good. And
he just does what he wants now, man. He's approaching 80.
Well, now he just does HBO movies, really. He has the You Don't Know Jack on Jack of Orkin. He has the Santini, what is it, the Penn State movie. I think he has like another one. Like, he's totally Mr. HBO Films. I'm sure all those roles are great because, you know, he's a great actor, and great actors never age, really. They just get better with age, which is why I really hope before he passes that Jack Nicholson comes out of retirement for some fucking movie. God knows what it's going to be. But something. But if Al Pacino can still do it, and he can ad-lib and do some crazy fucking shit on camera, I want to see you less at Laker games and more on screen. Like, maybe that's about Schmidt coming out of me, like, because it took me so long to see that one, and it was such an early pick on the show too, that, like, no one's seen that. That's gonna be one of those films where he dies, and then someone watches it, and they're like, "Oh my god, I just saw about Schmidt. It's so amazing. How didn't I see this before he died?" Like, that's gonna be exactly what happens. Like Al Pacino, like, this is one of those films for him too. Like, when he dies, people are gonna go, "Oh yeah, he won an Oscar for this one. Check it out. He gives a lifetime performance." Which might be pushing a little far, but I think it's just the physicality of the role, the way that he totally owns it, that he goes for broke. There's so much of himself in this. I love this movie, even if on this viewing I wasn't as enamored as that first or perhaps second time that I caught it. There's just something about this one where I don't care what age you are, like I said, if you're 17 or 57 or younger or older, that, because, this is a virginal, like, all-American boy. No facial hair, no tattoos, no bad language, really, like, kept together, even though he's poor, even though he's from Oregon, he's living on the other side of the country, that, he's what American can be. Like, he's the idea of this Baird school, like, he is their poster child. And then you have, on the opposite side of the track, someone that got kicked out of the military, someone who doesn't really have family anymore, just this old miser, this asshole, in the way that they have this symbiotic relationship where they're equally learning things from each other, where it is ultimately just about the power of not necessarily even friendship, but companionship. How necessary it is at any part of life to have someone, anyone, not only just to talk to, but to talk with, to hang out with, to just, enjoy life. Because even if you feel like you're done, it's over, you want to throw in the towel, which they both do here, they are reminded. Like, it doesn't end in a Frank Capra way, because when he walks up that driveway and he's talking to his... It almost does, but when he's talking to his grandkids, like, it feels... Or not his grandkids, his great-nephew and niece, it feels a certain way. But then again, when he's like, okay, get in the car, have fun for Christmas, you should stop by sometime, and they leave. Yeah. There's no hug, there's no handshake, there isn't a thanks for being there this weekend, thanks for saving my life type of thing.
It is more like, hey, the way it's performed, it's like, hey, you know what, you're a good guy, I had a good time with you this weekend, thanks for being around. Let's
do it again.
I don't know, there's just something times in life where when you hang out with a total stranger for like a period of time, you're actually more open with them about things that you don't talk to with anyone, because you're not likely to see them for a while, and things come out. But for that ending, it should be like that, but fucking Thomas Newman's score just makes it feel away, like it's going for something else, and then it does sort of just kill it for me a little bit.
Well, just that limo pass, like, driving away shot lingers for a little too long. I don't know. It's not the best movie ever made. It has flaws. It's a little too long. The score is leading, but at the heart of it, you have lots of actors giving it their all. Some of them known stars, some of them rising stars, some of them people that you didn't even know in the first place, like Philip Seymour Hoffman, or as he's known in this film, Philip S. Hoffman. But other than, like, those little tiny moments, or someone going like, oh, it's not the 80s anymore, it is a timeless film. Like, it does have a certain hallmark to it that I think you'd be hard-pressed if you're looking for something that just... I can almost imagine the trailers. I haven't seen one, but I know you've already have and probably cut it. But I can imagine, like, the movie phone guy going, a friendship for the ages. An old man, a young boy, together, never the same after meeting one another.
Yep, and just try to imagine the music that's in the background.
I can, yeah.
I mean, I think for me, I think it is ultimately a dime a dozen. There's definitely... It's funny because, I couldn't help but, like, want to check Letterboxd to just see what praise there was, or if, really what it does, because I ultimately just... It didn't click, and it seems like everyone that loves it acknowledges the flaws, but there's still something there for them. But I also think, just for me, that this is... Stories like this, or just any movie that deals with depression, where that kind of is the main subject... I tend to find pretty boring. I mean, this, like, I brought this up with The Gray, and that's kind of an exception to the rule, but typically for me, depression just in story or just in film, it's not interesting at all. It's just very it's just there. It's very static. It's very boring. It's inert. You know, it never gets a chance to develop. And I say that as someone that's also you know, has gone through depression many times in my life, and it's kind of the same way that my own depression just isn't fucking interesting at all. That's why I rarely talk about it, if ever. I mean, you know, The Gray, I think that's a different movie, but that's also a different example where that element of it is introduced and then it's carried through the entirety of that movie, where you know it's present and yet you still got to act in the moment and deal with the shit. But you know, this is, for that, it's very well performed and well played, and you learn enough details there. But then they just don't really develop in any meaningful way for me. You know, like, I do see that ultimately at the end, all these things can happen and you can fucking whine about your life, and then someone ultimately says that one thing that gets you to come back from the ledge, which is, hey, you fucking dance better than anyone I've ever seen do the tango, and you fucking drive a Ferrari like nobody else I've ever seen. So, you know, just for me, ultimately it wasn't there, but I think I can see it. I mean, I'm curious to see what the original Italian version of this is like, though, too, at some point down the line. So maybe that might happen.
See, I'd counter that this isn't about Al Pacino's character's depression, because they are equally depressed.
But that's I don't know about the kid is growing.
He just doesn't know it.
Yeah,
he doesn't know he's depressed.
Well, he's confusing. We get like enough tidbits about his family, but
you know, he doesn't have a father. He doesn't like his stepfather. That he left his home on the western seaboard to go to the eastern seaboard.
Well, see, I don't know. For me, it seems like one of those things.
Doesn't have any friends. Like, all he has is school and work. He'll take any odd job. There's a reason why he stops Al Pacino from killing himself. And I think it's less so because he has a conscience, and more if he were to witness that, or to walk in on it, or to be aware of the fact that he would probably think, if there's nothing worth living for this guy that is accomplished, a lieutenant colonel that's highly decorated, that has a large family, that, you know, has made it and has retired and doing all these things and spending all this cash.
Yeah, it's like, then what is
do
there for
I
me?
have? Yeah, like, what is there for me? And he is confused. It doesn't even seem like he has any friends, you know? Like, there are this group of 4 who kind of mock him and pick on him, but they treat him
like shit, and they...
Oh, yeah, for sure. But, you know, there's that line where they're like, oh, do you want to come with us? He's like, oh, I'm a little short. He's like,
Stad.
How short?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's Gestad. Anyone that's been there says the G. Where then you get Harry walking away, who pays, like, the ultimate awesome, like, prep school asshole, where he goes, like, it is the job of the rich to offer, like, the drippings to the poor.
Yeah.
And you just go, yeah.
And I'm just like, this ain't Titanic, bro. Shut the fuck up.
Kind of is, though.
He would have been the perfect Billy Zane, I guess, at that point. But yeah,
this is in the prep school canon, even though it's less about preparatory school than the other ones are. If you look at, you know, not Goodwill Hunting, but School Ties and Dead Poet Society. And
I still got to see Dead Poet Society.
Dead Poets is a big one because of its cast. I mean, you got like a young Ethan Hawke, you got a young Robin Williams.
I want to see it, and I was considering it for the show too, but I don't want to force Robin Williams on you because I know you're.
Yeah, still haven't.
Yeah,
still
3 years, man. 3 years.
2 years.
2014. Well, I'll tell you what, because it's September and there's not that much that's topical, you want a preparatory or a prep school pick for next week?
Oh, you're gonna pick Dead Poets, aren't you?
No, I'm gonna give you Toy Soldiers.
Fine, fuck it, let's do Toy Soldiers. But yeah, this is a buy for me. I really hope, if you're listening and you haven't heard this one, that this makes you check it out. It is worth a watch, even if it isn't perfect. Even if you don't agree with a lot of it, such as Steve doesn't.
Oh yeah, I would not tell anyone not to see it, for sure.
Yeah. Yes. It's not necessarily a feel-good movie. I think it's a little too racy for that moniker. But it will make you feel better about your life. I guarantee it. Thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen to more by checking out the Dollar Review Show, where we cover theatrical and streaming releases, as well as give our 2 cents on anything we sought out on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. You know, trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films that I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.